Hi, my name is Ashton Garrison, and I'm here to do a presentation over the past, present, and future of special education. It all starts in the 1930s through 1950s. Before that time, not a lot of accommodations were being made for special needs students, and parents didn't really look at it either. It wasn't until like the 1930s that they started getting tired of their students not being treated fairly or marginalized because of their disabilities. They wanted their children to have accommodations in state and federally funded schools. They started making associations that wanted to make improvements to the laws, and these laws would help improve schools for the special needs students. It would include training for teachers that worked with students who had disabilities. These disabilities included being deaf, hard of hearing, or intellectually disabled. From the 1950s, we moved to 1954 and the Brown versus Board of Education. And this case was about segregation in public schools, which was eventually ended because of this case. And there was 4 different states that argued that segregated public schools were unequal, and they thought that they were getting deprived of equal protection. The Supreme Court did rule in their favor and wanted to give these African American children the right to education. After the courts ruled in favor of the African Americans, many parents of students with disabilities brought lawsuits against their school districts as well, because they thought that their children were getting left out because of their disabilities. Just like being colored, they thought that they were just being seen as a disability and being looked over, when really they should deserve an education just like the rest of the children there. And so a lot of lawsuits came about because of Brown versus Board of Education that were based on children with disabilities. So after we moved from Brown versus Board of Education, we go to 1965, which is an Elementary and Secondary Education Act. And what this act was, it gave an education opportunity for underprivileged children. Congress made sure that the schools were getting funded enough to be able to help educate students with handicaps. These grants also help build educational programs and resources. They wanted disadvantaged students to be able to get just as much of an education as non-disadvantaged students. And so they help fund states to make sure that this is what was happening. ESA is just the elementary and secondary education. From there, we move into 1971, which was the Pennsylvania Association for Retarded Children case. They sued the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania because the law that was made there. That law it allowed public schools to deny children because they believed that they only attained a mental age of 5 years. So the law helped school districts avoid children who they thought were burdensome. This was one of the first lawsuits that was challenged, and the plaintiffs argued that the children can benefit from a program of education, and not being able to learn leads to negative consequences. They brought in lots of evidence, and so the district court ruled that the former law was unconstitutional and made the state provide free education for all ages, 6 through 21. There was also had to be accommodations made to provide significant education and training for all exceptional children. And so I got 2 pictures here. The Pennsylvania Association for Retarded Children is what this stands for. And then this was the PARC versus Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Learning knows no bounds. Okay, so from 1971 we move into 1972. This case was about a little boy named Peter Mills. He was only 12 years old, and he also had 7 other children that were going against the District of Columbia. Peter was being looked over because he had behavioral issues, and the school district thought that they would spend too much money trying to provide for him and his behavioral issues. The district court ruled that no children should be denied an education without an equal alternative to the child's needs. So the school district was ordered to do several things. A few of these were to provide accessible, free, and suitable education for all children. They couldn't suspend anyone for more than 2 days without a hearing, and to provide all parties in the suit publicity-supported educational programs tailored to their needs. And so from 1972, we move on to 1973, which is the Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. The Rehabilitation Act was set to help students with special needs. Section 504 just jumped out at me because it mainly prohibits discrimination based upon disability. It's meant to be an anti-discrimination civil rights statute. It also helps students with disabilities to be met as adequately as the needs of non-disabled are met. So that means that they can't be looked over or not be taught because they have a disability. Everyone has to be taught in this Section 504. And so from Section 504, we head on to 1975. The Education for All Handicapped Children Act. And this act just wanted equality for all students. They wanted all children with disabilities to be able to have access to education and to be able to find a way that all state and educational agencies would be held accountable for providing educational service to all handicapped children. They put in place checks and balances that were called procedural safeguards. These procedural safeguards just help the children and their parents to have their own rights being safe. And so, like, no one could tell any of their school records without the parents' permission, and it just was to help the parents and children feel safe. This act just wanted teachers and school districts to teach all children the same, no matter what, if there was a disability or no disability. So we move into 2001, and with 2001, this was the No Child Left Behind, and this was Bush's act. And under this act, all grades 3 through 8 are supposed to be tested, and then they're supposed to see what students need help the most. And they want to close the gap. So, like, all the students that score low, they want to have accommodations to help those children raise their scores and have help to be able to do so. And they want the gap to be closed between the children who don't need help and the children that do. There were a few steps in this act, and those included accountability, and that just made sure that all students who were disadvantaged achieved academic proficiency. The second one was flexibility, and that just meant that the schools could fund special resources and accommodations for special students. Just the federal education funds were just wanted to help improve student achievement. So it didn't matter where they spent the funds, but it had to help the students' achievement. The third was research-based education, which meant that they wanted the children to look at scientific facts to help them improve their education. And then the fourth step was parent options. So this just helped increase the choices available to parents of students who attended the Title I schools. So from 2001, we moved to my last event, 2004, the IDEA Act. The IDEA Act is the Individuals with Disabilities Act. This just wanted to help students get prepared for real life and to help further their education. So the IDEA Act helps set IEPs and other things that helps a child progress into their education. If they're falling behind in a certain subject, they want to make sure that that child can get back up to where he's supposed to be with certain accommodations that help. Like if he needs 30 minutes of extra time doing math, that he gets his time he needs to get back to where he's supposed to be and to keep on track to graduation and beyond into life. So that's the first purpose of the act, is to provide children with special needs and education, prepare the student for further life. And then the second purpose was to protect the rights of both the children with disability and their parents. Again, protecting the children with disabilities and their parents is so important. This act also helped get grants available to special education and related services, and also made grants to state educational agencies just so that they could research on and find new ways to help students with special needs. So that is all the events I got. So from the present now, I said after each and every one of the lawsuits took place, there has been improvement in special educations. Now their schools are funding and resources for programs to help special needs students, and teachers are now being required to go through training or classes to help students with special needs. School districts are now looking to help special education students instead of just looking over them like they did in the past. It hasn't been very long that special education students have been giving accommodations to help them instead of just saying, oh, we can't help them, they're too burdensome. And so school districts are actually trying to help those students now. And there is always room for improvement, but from this point, it looks like the road continues in a positive direction for all the special needs students instead of going downwards. It can only get better from here is what I see. And so for our future, I think the future looks bright for special needs students. Pretty soon we'll be able to close the gap between special needs students and the other students. There's tons of technology that is coming out to help special needs students. There's hearing aids, there's toys for children who can't sit still. Our school systems still need to look for new improvements to help special needs students. Many more acts may come out to improve these acts. Many acts may come out to help improve the acts in place, and special education will only get better from here. So what lies ahead, I'm pretty sure, is going to be pretty positive. Special needs students are only going to get the best and keep continuing to get the best until they have the best that they can get. I don't think we will stop until we can close the gap from from students who don't have disabilities to students with disabilities. And that is the end of my presentation. And from there we go to my resources, which just lists all the different resources that I use to help look up all the information that I have given. This presentation was really interesting to see all the different things that come together to help improve in such a long journey and help special needs students. And it's kind of interesting to think about all the different things that are going to be needed still to make the special needs students have the absolute best. And I am done with my presentation, so thank you very much.